Good Tuesday afternoon to you, 4 o'clock time for Sports4CLE. Thanks for joining us. We'll talk a little Cavs later in the show. We begin, though, by talking Browns. So Myles Garrett dislocated a toe on his foot during the Pro Bowl game's obstacle course today. Myles Garrett tweets this out. Me reading Pro Bowl script. Appreciate everyone checking in. We are all good over here. Go Browns, as you see Myles Garrett in his AFC Pro Bowl attire. Let's welcome in Jeff Lloyd from the Locked On Browns podcast. Jeff, not a serious injury, but it does make you wonder why you would do obstacle courses and dodgeballs when you wouldn't allow guys to play pickup basketball. So I think the Pro Bowl is something that kind of has run its course.
Look, there is nothing that a professional athlete will ever do and view it as an exhibition. You do not become a professional athlete without being one of the most difficult people to you are just wired to compete. So exhibition or not, charity event or not, you don't have a switch in your body that you say, oh, I'll go in exhibition mode. Oh, it's playoffs, I'll go in this mode. Look, it's always a fun idea. And yes, years ago, the Pro Bowl, it probably meant more. Guys don't live in this social media age where you maybe don't know anybody, but you essentially know everybody. Look, there's other things they can do. You could have Myles Garrett sit down with a left tackle he played in a game against this year. Maybe they could sit down and break through 12 reps. People would still watch. You've got so many $100 million investments in the NFL. They've got to do its best to protect these players, protect these owners and the investments they made in these players. I understand you want to try to keep something going. I get it. Find a way to maybe have the affiliation with it more towards the Senior Bowl or towards the Shrine Bowl. This just isn't something that's going to work. Watching Joe Batonio with two footballs in one hand, catching a punt with the other. Okay, what happens if one of those footballs drops? And he trips, ruptures an Achilles, breaks an ankle, blows out a knee. You just can't do these things. The games themselves mean so much, and now we're dialing back on OTAs, dialing back on training camp, dialing back on the amount of times we let guys practice during the week. We can't do this. And Dave, the biggest thing is a lot of players go participate in this stuff, and they haven't done anything in a month.
Right. Yeah. And again, it's time to kind of move on from it. All right. So Pro Football Focus's Sam Monson. To him, pretty apparent what the Browns need to do to improve dramatically.
Myles Garrett is individually playing as well as any defensive lineman in the NFL. We're talking like this year, everybody's focused on Nick Bosa and Micah Parsons and maybe Chris Jones. And I think Garrett is playing as well as any of those guys, if not better. But the situation around him on that defensive line is so bad that it doesn't matter. And we track these things, these plays of like individual pass rush wins that don't get to become pressure because the ball's gone, right? Before he can affect the quarterback. Garrett has led the NFL in those for the last couple of years. And I think that is a product of nobody alongside him is winning. So the number of plays or the number of wins that he has that don't affect the quarterback is disproportionately high. So simply improving the situation inside of him immediately makes his performance more effective, because all of a sudden, maybe 20 of those plays where he wins actually do become pressure because there's somebody 3 yards closer to the quarterback inside him than there is now.
And Jeff, that kind of puts some numbers to what we saw, and he's exactly right. If you get the line better around Myles Garrett becomes in that same conversation with Bosa and those other guys that are Defensive Player of the Year candidates every year.
Look, there's a lot of opportunities where Myles Garrett, even though he doesn't get home, the quarterback, breaks the pocket, steps up in the pocket, avoids Myles' path. That is supposed to be creating cleanup opportunities for other players. We're obviously not getting them. Taven Bryant, your second leading sacker on the season with 3. You saw more activity from Jadeveon Clowney in 21, 22. You saw nothing close to that. Myles excelled with Olivier Vernon back in the day. That was a situation in a marriage that certainly worked together. You just, and the thing is it's really easy to game plan where you're not scared about anybody else on that defensive line. And you see teams commit 2, 3. Heck, if you got to hold them, because you want to know what are the odds? Myles Garrett's then going to come back the next rep and sack our quarterback because we don't really have any fear of anybody else. It's a difficult spot to be in. And, I think the Browns, as they did with Joe Woods, as they're doing with a lot of other things, is, you're going and evaluating yourself after 3 years about what you do well and what you don't do well. And I think that's why they went to a guy like Jim Schwartz, who has had more than one successful stop in the NFL as far as being a defense coordinator, starting in Tennessee, becoming the head coach of the Detroit Lions, having another strong stint in Buffalo, then another strong stint with the Philadelphia Eagles. I think they put themselves in a position where I think, in my opinion, Jim Schwartz is probably going to get a lot of pull here as far as, what he wants, what he likes. And the Browns say, hey, we can do this. Jim, what do you think? Is this something you can work with? Because I think they realize that this has been an issue for them. They really have not been able to get this position right. And this isn't just necessarily the Andrew Berry era. The defensive tackle position for the Cleveland Browns has been an issue since I've been covering in the fall of 2017. But it does feel sometimes like you got Miles out there and he's basically, one-legged man in a butt-kicking contest.
So the Browns did make a signing on the defensive line to a reserves futures contract. Michael Dumfour has played a handful of games in the NFL, is really a guy that could be a rotational piece if he develops. Again, they need so much and so many rotational guys, Jeff. They're going to bring in guys that are young to see, okay, can they do a certain thing that we can use?
Oh, no question. And, I know this is, got a lot of traction today, but I mean, these reserve future contracts are usually done the Monday, Tuesday after anybody's NFL season ends. So the fact that this is done almost a month afterwards, granted, you never want to put a player down in that capacity. But there's obviously something there, and there's some diligence that was done by the Browns that at least gives the appeal to bring him in here. We'll see if he actually makes it to the point of training camp, because you have to keep in mind there is going to be a ton of other people coming to the Cleveland Browns through free agency, possibly through trades, through drafts, to that defensive line room. Just somebody probably they wanted to get to know better, give the opportunity to. Somebody obviously maybe had their eye on. You never, no stone, goes unturned, as they say. But, definitely a little early in the process. And, God, I don't think anybody being Cleveland would be very particularly happy if, they were going to say that, oh, that was the second or third best defensive line move they made this offseason.
Yeah, and along those lines. So this is from the Bleacher Report. Free agents who could become superstars on their new teams in 2023. We're going to take a look at a couple of edge rushers first. So first we got Marcus Davenport. Breakthrough is Pro Bowl talent. Davenport will, of course, have to stay healthy. He would also benefit tremendously from a roster that can score points and put opponents into passing situations. Another edge rusher, a young guy, Arden Key from the Jacksonville Jaguars, had another strong season in Jacksonville 2022, 4.5 sacks, 20 pressures, 20 tackles, fumble recovery. Starting to emerge, they say. Key is starting to emerge, largely been a role player to this point. Pass rushers like Josh Allen, Trayvon Walker on Jacksonville's roster. 26-year-old has played just 41% of the defensive snaps this season. Neither of those guys is $20 million a year kind of guys. Those are kind of in the mid to, 11, 12 million, maybe even a little less for Key. You intrigued by either of those guys?
Key has always been an interesting name, and his whole draft process back in the day at LSU, was interesting. It was a guy who ended up, basically, the questions were maturity and was he ready for all this? And usually you don't find a guy, get better until it's maybe the second or the third stop. At that point it either breaks him, or you find a guy who ends up sticking around in the league 8 to 10 years. Arden Key certainly qualifies there, and I think you look at a guy and, like you said, 41%. So this would be a situation here for the Browns where you could play somebody maybe bigger in obvious earlier situations, 1st and 10. But then we start getting to passing situations. You can bring Arden Key in to do what he does best. Probably a player that, like you said, I think you're talking maybe somewhere in that 5 to 7 million range. Another name to actually look at as far as that would be a free agent from the Tennessee Titans, where Jim Schwartz was last year, DeMarcus Walker. DeMarcus Walker started his career at the Denver Broncos, played this past year with Tennessee Titans, career high, 7 sacks, best year in the NFL. Much like we talk about sometimes with Bill Callahan, and similar to what happened with Ethan Posick this year, just a guy who maybe was always good, but maybe needed somebody to just coach him in a different type of way and get the best out of him, which Bill Callahan did. Maybe this could be a situation for a guy like Keith, for a guy like DeMarcus Walker, could get paired with a Jim Schwartz who has this recipe. And I think that's big with young guys, is getting to a coach and knowing and being able to look at the guy's track record and what he's done. And he'll, oh, he's worked with this guy, he's worked with this guy, he's worked with this guy. And so some of those guys who maybe where immaturity questions, do lie, you walk in and it's automatically a respectability thing because, oh, I know what you have done already. It's out there. I mean, there's length to it. There's lots of guys. So certainly, guys you want to look at here, names that will probably fit there. I don't think anybody we're talking about here maybe comes in as your starting defensive end opposite Myles Garrett. Davenport, there's been injuries. It was only half a sack last year. He's a guy that could get big. For me, that's one I probably would not want to touch. But key DeMarcus Walker in the right role, knowing that they wouldn't be starters, but still could play 40 to 50% of the reps, definitely have a lot of appeal.
Let's take a look at a defensive tackle, and this one's a local guy. So Draymond Jones was a third-round draft choice out of Ohio State, kid from St. Ignatius with the Broncos. Had a really good season in 2022. He missed 4 games with a hip injury, but 47 tackles, forced fumbles, 6.5 sacks, 16 quarterback pressures. That's from a D tackle. Your thoughts? Is that a guy that that you think could be affordable, that the Browns might bring in as a piece? And again, he's a local kid.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting this year with the defensive tackle class because for a lot of years now, it's just kind of been one where it just never drew big money through free agency. And Draymond Jones, the pass rushing is great, but maybe the fact that his run, he's better probably pass rusher at this point in his career than he would be a run stopper. He's not he's not a big interior player. So a guy that you probably would want to reserve for nickel and dime situations. I definitely love the idea. The fact that you can get 6.5 sacks out of the middle. And what we talked about earlier with Myles Garrett, where Myles Garrett, even when he's not getting the sacks himself, he should be setting up opportunities for other guys to get to the quarterback. And for a guy like Draymond Jones, now riding a confidence high after the year he had in Denver, definitely a player I definitely have a ton of interest in. With his defensive coordinator, though, leaving Denver, going to, you wonder if there's a situation there where maybe he's going to follow along because obviously somebody got the best out of you. You might want to follow that person. So we'll see the way it works out. But that's definitely a guy I'm sure the Browns are at least going to try to have some conversations with.
Jeff Lloyd from the Locked On Browns podcast and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, we'll head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason, talk a little bit of offense. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
We continue talking Browns here on Sports4CLE with Jeff Lloyd from the Locked On Browns podcast. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hey, my question is, and I know this has come up before, but it's been a while, should Coach Stefanski have played his starters more in the preseason to gain those valuable reps? Granted, there is risk of injury, but we had major issues early on last year, and it cost us. Those blow-in coverages were killer and lingered and had to adversely affect the secondary the rest of the year. Working out these details in the preseason is paramount against teams rather than practice. Still need practice, but you know what I'm saying. If you look at teams 10, 20, 30 or more years ago, starters were playing full halves of some preseason games, and yet there's one less game now. Should Stefanski rethink this for next season? Appreciate your comments. Bye now.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Jeff, I think you got to look at it. You've gotten off to horrible starts to the last two seasons. And I get the risk of injury. You can't get off to the type of starts they have the last 2 years, though.
I'm not going to disagree with you, but, in the first couple of weeks of the season, the Browns started the same four secondary players they were starting the season before with the same defensive coordinator. So, I don't know necessarily what more because keep in mind the preseason reps, if you're going to play more preseason reps, most likely your opponent's not. So it's great that you can, maybe shut down a couple of guys who are going to probably be, substitute teachers in a couple of weeks, if that's the route you want to go. But the problem is it's just the money that's invested. Nobody cares about the preseason. Yes, they'll say cliche things like we'd like to get some cohesion, we'd like to work on this, we'd like to work on that. But nobody wants the risk of one of their premium talents that they're paying a lot of money to go down in August with an injury. It's a tough, triggery spot to be in. Plus the other thing, and to the caller, 20, 30 years ago, I mean, but also 20, 30 years ago, you'd go to high school football games, and if you saw 2 passes and a half, it would blow your mind. Now you got high school quarterbacks throwing for 3,000 yards in a season. So it's not like these guys aren't ready as far as that. And I mean, these athletes, it's not like in the old days, where, I drank for 3 months and then I got up, started working out, and then football started again. These guys, it is a 365-day-a-year business. They know they put that investment, they put that work in. I think a lot of it more, not necessarily the reps in the preseason, just making sure that you have your other ducks in a row is, well, do we have our 2-minute defense? We're up 13 with 1:54 to go. Are we going to go, cover 4 here like we should and make sure they go 8-9 yard pops as opposed to the first thing they do is go for 75 yards with the slowest wide receiver on their team.
Yeah. And, I argue that the Pro Bowl has run its course. I can't sit here and say, you should play these guys in preseason because preseason's just a little step above the Pro Bowl, I guess. All right.
Dave, real quick, in 2020, there are no preseason games and the Cleveland Browns went to the playoffs.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you can pick it away any way you want, but, I mean, we could sit here and go defense attorney, district attorney back and forth all day long and make a point either way. And these are great things you can do when maybe your season didn't go your way.
Yeah, no, I get it. Absolutely. You got to look for you got to find an answer somewhere to get it corrected, without question. All right.
No doubt.
And I know you've talked about this one. So Deshuan Watson's contract, it's kind of already affecting the Bengals and the Ravens. Lamar Jackson and the Ravens could be $100 million apart in their talks over how much guaranteed money should be in this new contract. That's according to ESPN's Jeremy Fowler. A lot of people think that, not a lot, there are people that think he will be franchised and traded, that he could end up playing quarterback for the Falcons. The other thing is there's a hefty chunk of guaranteed money that you have to put in escrow when you guarantee a quarterback's contract. Mike Brown's going to have that issue with Joe Burrow. So, yeah, I mean, it is affecting 2 of the huge division rivals for the Browns.
Well, the thing with Lamar Jackson, and for me, this is still the most astounding thing of this past football season, is that Lamar Jackson basically played on the same rookie contract that Baker Mayfield, the same situation that Baker Mayfield was playing on the same original rookie contract. Man, had already won an MVP, had already secured home field advantage, 1 year first team for the playoffs. And then there were those who got down on him. Could he have finished the season? Couldn't he have finished the season? Well, I have 0 guaranteed money left. Why should I take this risk? My franchise has already shown that they are not ready to invest in me in the long term. And what if we heard things from the Ravens say, the contract's ready for him whenever he's ready to sign it? Then we get reports like this. And yes, you can always say, it is that. Well, but they said this. Marlon Humphrey said from the Pro Bowl, as he was talking to guys who are going to be prospective free agents about the Ravens, everybody asked one thing. Is Lamar going to be the quarterback? People don't believe it. People don't know. And the fact that Lamar Jackson is not sitting here with a long-term deal. I mean, we're talking about Daniel Jones possibly getting a long-term deal with the New York Giants, $35 to $37 million off of 1 season of maybe okay football. This is a former MVP, one of the best players in the NFL. And for the Ravens, okay, we'll franchise him. That's $45 million. So there's money you're not going to be paying other people. The issue for the Bengals, like you said, having this money put away on this guaranteed contract, and who are we kidding, even for Lamar Jackson and certainly for Joe Burrow, $235 million guaranteed to Deshaun Watson. one of these guys are saying, well, you better not even call me if you're coming in under that number, because if you do, we've got ourselves a big issue. Cincinnati Bengals, one of the best defensive players, Jesse Bates. Doesn't seem there's a shot in the world Cincinnati Bengals have any shot at re-signing Jesse Bates, who's been a stalwart of their defense for the last few years. They're hearing things that they're going to have issues between T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. Probably can only keep one. Well, if they can only keep one, most likely it's going to be Jamar Chase, because they're just not a franchise that is well off financially as some other ones are. So when we heard all of these things that, there were NFL teams that were not happy with the Browns, with Jimmy Haslam, due to this contract amount, now you're starting to see this play out because, obviously the Ravens and Lamar are a light years away from what they feel is the right contract. Cincinnati is going to have to say goodbye to some very, very good players, key players for the last few years. And you're starting to see, basically how this is all playing out to what the Browns gave to Deshuan Watson.
Well, the other thing is, so when you look at the Browns have areas that they need to improve without question. So, and they have a number of big contracts. You got 3 guys on the offensive line making in excess of $10 million. Nick Chubb's making in excess of $10 million. Amari Cooper is 20. You got Garrett and Ward on the other side of the football. John Johnson at 9, or at it's $11 million. 9 is his cap hit, 9.75. If they move away from him, they save that. So the question I have for you: do you think the Browns trade one of those guys with a decent-sized contract to try to acquire assets? And if so, who do you think it might be?
I'm not sure if it's necessarily, asset. I would say draft capital. I think maybe they feel they have to move some money. But I think we all believe that there was going to be this world where we were losing Jack Conklin at the end of this year, because then you were going to start talking 5th-year option for Jedrick Wills. Once they re-signed Jack Conklin to an extension, it really makes you think about where they are with Jedrick Wills. Look, it's been 3 years. And look, part of this, if the Browns do feel that maybe Jedrick Wills is not where he's at, that's on them. You drafted a guy who was a right tackle. You said we're going to play him at left tackle, and if it didn't work out, well, you drafted a guy to do something you had not seen. So as much as, the ups and downs and the inconsistencies of Jedrick Wills can be on him, they're on the Browns as well. The other thing is, it doesn't help a guy like Jedrick Wills that Ethan Posick comes in here and, within, basically being named the starter due to injury within 3 weeks, goes out and performs like a top 10 center. So what the Browns say is, well, maybe it's time to move on, and let's see if we can have Bill Callahan find a guy, groom a guy, and we can get a better return of investment from that player. Because the Browns might also say, you know what, I think we want to keep Ethan Posick, but we got to move on from somebody. And the other one, sure, it would be John Johnson. I think there are teams out there who would view playing John Johnson the way he was used with the Rams and feel that they would get a lot better play out of John Johnson. So I think if anybody were calling for John Johnson III, I don't think it would take much. Day 3 picks, 6th, 7th, I think the Browns would happily walk away from that contract.
Jeff Lloyd from the Locked On Browns podcast, and I'm going to take one more time out on the side of the break. We'll head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason, plus some players that could be cap casualties. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
We continue talking Browns with Jeff Lloyd from the Locked On Browns podcast. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hey, this is E.T. Long time no see, guys. I just heard a rumor that possibly that the Chargers might have to cut Keenan Allen. Is that true? And if it's true, would Keenan Allen make a good fit alongside Amari Cooper and Donovan Peoples-Jones? What do you guys think about adding Keenan Allen to the mix? Thank you. Have a nice day.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. And, Jeff, we did mention that Allen was a guy, along with Gerald Everett, that might, Chargers are in cap issues, so that he might get cut. I think he's kind of a duplication of skill sets that the Browns have. He's a good receiver, don't get me wrong, but if you're going to spend that kind of money, I'd rather get a different skill set, I think.
Well, as always, and what do we say? It always would come down to the money. But this is one that actually kind of interests me. Same age as Nuke Hopkins, both will turn 31 in the offseason. But Keenan Allen has never been a guy who was viewed as this elite athlete. He was viewed as an elite route runner. Where I think he can be beneficial for the Cleveland Browns is he has so much success in his career out of the slot. He has so much success in his career, 3rd and 4, 3rd and 5, 3rd and 6. How many times? Whether it was Phillip Rivers, whether it was Justin Herbert, Keenan Allen for 6, Keenan Allen for 7. The chains keep on moving. But, factors. Yes, he would have to be waived. You're not trading for him for the contract he's on. He's a free agent. It's interesting, a lot more interesting that way. The other thing is coming from the West Coast to the AFC North. This is a guy that's battled a ton of injuries over his career, playing in, poorer, lesser weather. Is certainly something gives you some pause and hesitation that maybe it could cause some more injuries. But keep in mind, we did have some of these questions about Amari Cooper coming here, and we saw the return of the investment the Browns got there. But if you told me it was a one-year deal, it wasn't breaking the bank as far as money, I think there is a world where Amari Cooper, Donovan Peoples-Jones, David Njoku, and Deshaun Watson really, really would work. For me, that's an interesting one that I would definitely keep my eye on. He's always just been so quiet about his game and not a guy that people talk about probably as much as they should. But you got a guy like Amari Cooper on the field, a guy like Keenan Allen on the field. It doesn't matter their age, doesn't matter their speed. They just know how to win and excel in their route running.
All right, fair enough. Here are a couple of NFL cap casualties that could be steals for other teams 2023, according to the Bleacher Report. Wide receiver Corey Davis. Davis still has a season remaining on his 3-year, $37.5 million deal. Could be released to save over $10 million with a cap hit of only $666,000. Should Davis land with a receiver-needy team and a decent quarterback in place, Packers, Browns, and Giants fit the bill. Real chance he will finally realize his full potential. And the other one they mentioned, Russell Gage, wide receiver from the Buccaneers. Gage did score career-high 5 touchdowns, 51 receptions, 426 yards. Pedestrian hamstring issues limited him to 13 games and seemed to impact his effectiveness. And, of course, with Tom Brady retiring, nobody's sure exactly what the Buccaneers are going to do. Talk about those two. Who of those two do you think could fit in nicely in the wide receiver room for the Browns?
The Corey Davis one, I just don't see how it works because I don't know who goes to the slot then. And for what you got from Donovan Peoples-Jones this year, to bring in Corey Davis, you would be taking some away from Donovan Peoples-Jones, who's younger, less expensive, and just flat out had a better year last year. So, for me, the one on the Corey Davis front. And the thing with Corey Davis, he came into this league really highly touted, but didn't really have much success in Tennessee till they signed A.J. Brown. Didn't have much success with the Jets until Garrett Wilson was taking up a lot of the coverage. That's a tough one there. Russell Gage is interesting. Definitely because I think the Browns do want to sign at least a veteran wide receiver because I think they want to look at all these guys, young guys, and say, look, we've given a bunch of you guys opportunities. It just hasn't worked. And whatever, we've got to fix the problem. We cannot continue to do this every offseason. So, and nobody has proven anything. Nobody's going to – OTAs will mean nothing between these young guys. One or two of them can battle out for whatever spots are remaining. Russell Gage would be interesting, though. And obviously, you play, you excel, you have success with a guy like Tom Brady. That shows that obviously this guy is intelligent because there's been guys that haven't been able to get on the field to play with a guy like Tom Brady because Tom just hasn't felt like they were ready or they were up to it.
All right. So, again, I don't know that those guys fit the skill set that we mentioned. Browns need to have somebody that kind of threatens the defense horizontally and vertically. Along those lines, we found this kind of interesting. So this is a 40-yard dash for each team's wide receivers weighted by the routes that they run. You want to be more towards the right side than the left. And the Browns are pretty close to the – now, I say that. They're right in front of the Bengals, and you got the 49ers all the way over towards the slower 40 times. But the Browns' production for wide receivers was okay. It wasn't great. And, again, there's just not that threat that you need.
And look, one of the things that's also difficult there is, you keep in mind, you played with one quarterback for 11 games. Yeah. Then you had another quarterback who came back for 6 games after, so we can do these things, but, they maybe don't necessarily tell the story. You tell me your top 2 wide receivers combined for over 2,000 yards. I think that's pretty good. That's one where I say take into fact that they played with a backup quarterback for 11 games and a guy who was struggling to get back to any form whatsoever. I don't think the problem is Amari Cooper. I don't think the problem is Donovan Peoples-Jones. I think the problem is the 7 to 8 guys that are in that room, and we don't really have a solid answer on any of them.
Right.
And that's kind of where the issue is. I think they thought Jakeem Grant could do some things. Obviously, they never got to explore that. Anthony Schwartz, the injuries, obviously the mental struggles, a difficult spot for that young man to be in. Michael Woods. And then there were weeks where it was one wide receiver was up to play special teams. So this one we had to sit down. They played the kid Dalen Baldwin the one week against the Ravens at 2 receptions for 25 yards. Looked like somebody who had a relationship with Deshuan Watson. Then we never really saw him again. This is why I think that the Browns, it's going to be, I don't want to say significant. I'll clarify it by saying significant as in I think they are going to bring in a proven commodity. I think they are going to bring in some type of veteran wide receiver because they just can't be put in this situation again where it's just the 2 of them and just the 2 of them that they have any confidence in. They've put a lot into it here in the kids in the room. It just hasn't worked. And you know what? Sorry, guys, time's up. I mean, we got jobs on the line here, potential, serious, head coach, coordinators, jobs are on the line. We got to make sure we're doing everything we can. And the other thing is we invested $238 million in our quarterback, and we better get the return on that investment.
Yeah, I agree with you wholeheartedly. They need a veteran to kind of even things out and settle that room down a little bit. Jeff Lloyd, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Jeff.
All the best, Dave, and everybody listening. Thanks so much for having me. All the best. See you guys soon.
All right, sounds good. Jeff Lloyd, make sure you check him out, Locked On Browns podcast. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. We continue talking Browns. Casey Kinnamon from Dogtown Daily straight ahead. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
I am powerful beyond my wildest imagination.
I will define my future.
I will keep challenging myself to improve.
Because I am a future leader of this great nation.
I will be responsible for raising a beautiful family.
And educating not only my generation, but many more to come.
I will make a difference in my community.
And I will stand up for what I believe in.
I will not settle for simply chasing my dreams. I will achieve them.
Because I was given a chance.
An opportunity.
A home.
At Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America.
The ultimate leadership experience.
FCCLA has been one of the greatest experiences of my life.
It's made me who I am today.
Join us. We'll build a new future together.
We continue talking Browns here on Sports for CLE. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Yeah, Cherokee here. I think we ought to trade Myles Garrett. He had the speed and the strength, but I think he's become a little bit of muscle bound. He's getting like an aged horse, and he's lost his speed. He's still got the strength, but I think we can get our first-round picks back, and we can sure make this team a whole lot better. I would get everything that we could get from Myles Garrett, and let's go to the Super Bowl.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Casey, I've heard we've gotten a couple of those. I just don't see that happening because the Browns view the Super Bowl window as opening and being open. You've got Deshuan Watson under contract for the next 4 years. I don't see them trading Myles Garrett.
Dave, I'm all the way out on that take. I cannot see a world in which they decide that Myles Garrett isn't a part of this future. And I'd like to know what the caller is seeing that makes him think that Myles has lost his speed. He's coming off a year where Pro Football Focus had him rated as the second overall player, regardless of position. I can't see a world where that happens, and I don't want to be in a world where that happens. To be frank, Myles Garrett has to be the focal point of this defense. And the only problem I really see with Myles Garrett is he gets double teamed too much. Jim Schwartz needs to be in a dark room right now, figuring out a way where Myles Garrett sees 5 to 10 less double teams a game. And if that happens, he's probably looking at like 20 sacks. And would you ever even consider trading a player who had the potential to get 20 sacks? Because I sure wouldn't.
Well, the other thing is the rest of the defensive line underperformed so much. They just need to get – I think if you get – and we heard Sam Monson from PFF mention this earlier. If you get a better cast around him, if you will, the number of his play is going to improve dramatically just by the fact that, people that are trying to get away from him are going to run into defensive tackles if they win their one-on-ones. All right, this from Dog Pound Daily. 3 low-key free agents Browns must bring back in 2023. Number 3 is A.J. Green. That's a cornerback. Gets overlooked because the Browns' cornerbacks are really good. Number 2 is Chase Winovich. I am intrigued to see what Jim Schwartz would do with him on the edge. You put him out in that wide 9, and that plays to his strengths. And number 1, Sione Takitaki, linebacker. When given the opportunity before he was injured, he was playing really well. I'm on board with all 3 of those, to be honest with you, because I see Winovich as a rotational piece, and they're going to need some of those guys that, not going to play on first down and on second and short, but if you're in a passing situation, bring him in there and say, go get the quarterback.
Yeah, he definitely has a role. It isn't that of a pass rushing rotational defensive end. We didn't really get to see it come to fruition last year because he was injured. So that kind of gives me a little pause. I also do want to see what they can do with Isaiah Thomas. I think that Winovich took a lot of his snaps when he came back, and Thomas ended up being a healthy scratch several times. The A.J. Green, I think that's a no-brainer. They trust him. He's a good outside corner. They can get him on a cheap deal, and he's a very playable piece if he needs to contribute. And he also contributes on special teams as well. The Taki one, I mean, that all comes down to the injury.
Right.
Because if you look at everything else aside, he's an excellent sandbacker. In a pinch, he can play Mike or Will, contributor on special teams, brings an attitude. He's more of a thumper, but it's all about that injury. Like, when's he going to be ready, and what's he willing to sign for?
Yeah, and you could say the same thing about Anthony Walker. You certainly hope Anthony Walker is healthy, and what's he looking for contract-wise, and can they bring him back? All right, I know you wrote an article kind of reviewing the rookies for 2022. Let's start with some of the defensive guys, Emerson, Wright, Winfrey, and Thomas. Let's take us through those.
Well, Emerson, I mean, that one right there, it was one we didn't see coming. Super pleasant surprise, though, when you finally got to camp, just wowing everybody with his physicality, his size. He brings a different element to that cornerback room that wasn't there, and he plays with an edge. And when he finally got the opportunity to get on the field during the regular season, he showed that he belonged from day one. So, you never want to say something's a slam dunk, but at face value after 1 year, that was a very good pick. To trade back, gain assets, and still get a starting caliber corner, that's excellent. The defensive line rookies is where it kind of gets interesting, though, because Alex Wright was drafted to be the eventual Robin to Miles' Batman. We really didn't see that come to fruition in year one. What kind of leap can he make in year two? He saw some valuable snaps. Didn't give us a ton of production though. That one's kind of where the jury is out. He did show some versatility, being able to play some defensive tackle. Maybe Schwartz can implement that into his game plans, because in all likelihood, he won't be the starter opposite of Miles. He's going to have to be a heavy contributor, though, when he gets his opportunities. Had Winfrey not had the introductory press conference that he had and kind of got everybody all riled up, I don't think we'd have looked at his season as being a disappointing one. Of course, there's the healthy scratches due to his behavior. That's concerning. But when he did get in, he showed that he could be an effective pass rusher from that position, and this team desperately needs that. Now, is he a starting caliber defensive tackle? No, not right now. But he can definitely fulfill a need on this team. And Isaiah Thomas, I mean, that is one right there. I think that is an excellent pick for a 7th-round pick. And he's going to be someone that is going to contribute as a rotational guy for the next several years. Even if he never becomes a starter, he far exceeds where he was drafted, just being able to be a playable piece that can give you 3 to 4 sacks a season.
Yeah, those guys, Wright, Winfrey, and Thomas, need to take a step forward in a pretty substantial. They need to be productive. They don't have to be starters. All of those guys have to have a role, and Jim Schwartz has to figure out how to use them properly if this line is gonna get fixed to the level it needs to.
Yeah, Schwartz has never had a problem figuring out roles for guys. If they show they have the base level of skill, so it's going to be on those guys to get their bodies ready, show up to camp ready to learn, and just be aggressive, because Schwartz is going to give you opportunities, and all 3 of those guys are going to get their spots, in preseason to show that they belong. And Winfrey's a rare one, because that defensive tackle room is going to see a massive overhaul. He's one of the guys that are, he's kind of safe just because he was only drafted last year. So he has a chance right now to kind of demonstrate for Schwartz that he's going to be that guy on 3rd down. And if he can do that, you could see him maybe 5 or 6 sacks next year.
Casey Kinnamon and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, we'll talk a little bit about some draftable guys. Some guys coming out. Some played well in the Senior Bowl. Some names to listen out. More defensive linemen straight ahead. Sports for CLE will be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
We continue talking Browns with Casey Kinnamon from Dog Pound Daily. So these are guys, NFL draft best fits from Senior Bowl, Shrine Bowl standouts. This according to the Bleacher Report. Defensive lineman Eddie Barre from Northwestern, 6'1", 284 pounds, undersized at defensive tackle, length and explosion to work through those shortcomings and become a productive NFL player. Pass rush skills he showed at Mobile, that's the Senior Bowl, didn't necessarily always show up on film. Best fits, Browns, Chargers, and Lions. So what do you think, Casey? Again, a guy from the Big Ten who kind of flashed at one of those senior all-star type games.
His size concerns me a little bit. We're talking about someone 284 pounds, only 6'1". He gets after it. He does give you some inside-outside versatility. He played 3 tech and base defensive end in Mobile and had a decent showing at both. And he has improved on some stuff from the regular season. His hand placement, when you watch him play, really wasn't consistent. And it definitely improved when he was in Alabama. He had some excellent reps against Cody Mock, showed a nice spin move. It showed his use of leverage for his height. But at the end of the day, a 285-pound defensive tackle, I mean, we've kind of been down this path. I don't see the Browns doing that, especially going out, at 42, I don't think he's an option. He's someone that if at the end of round 3, early, round 4, I think you might think about it then.
Yeah, I'm seeing horrible flashbacks to teams running the ball 18 times in a row and the defense not stopping it. So I hear you. This is NFL's biggest draft risers from Super Bowl Nation. Cano Benton, defensive tackle from Wisconsin. Benton earned his spot on this list. Development in the pass rush department showcased a nice blend of both power, technique, going for a smooth arm over multiple times, beating other national team linemen. And Benton is a guy that's intriguing. Here's kind of some of the moves you see. A bigger guy, and you see that first step and getting away from the center. So what do you think about Benton?
He's a ton of fun to watch. We're looking at someone 6'3", 312 pounds, super violent hands. I mean, he can dispatch blockers with ease, understands leverage really well. He was a high school wrestler. He was like 48-2 as a junior, so he's got those kind of agility skills for a big man you don't often see. I see him more as a natural 3 tech who can do the 1 tech stuff. But just, the 312 pounds, that's got to be intriguing right there. The Browns didn't really have that kind of size up front, and he would provide that from day one.
And the other thing is, you mentioned the agility, so you get the ability to kind of absorb double teams because he's a bigger guy. And the leverage as a wrestler plays into that. And you also say, for a 312-pound guy, I'm getting out of the way because he's got a pretty quick first step. All right, this is from PFF. It's addressing 32 NFL teams' biggest offseason need with a mock draft simulator. So Browns' biggest need, interior defensive linemen. So we've kind of come to that conclusion. The pick, defensive tackle Mazai Smith from Michigan. Sam Monson noted that of the 4 interior defensive linemen who played 200 snaps for the Browns, all graded out 41.6 or worse. That makes Smith, who racked up 46 pressures across the past 2 seasons, excellent target for the Browns with that first pick in the second round. And we had seen that and have referenced how much the Browns line, other than Myles Garrett, struggled. So Smith, again, a bigger guy.
That is an understatement. 337 pounds. This is a natural space eater. This is a guy that you can put in that 1 tech and just let it roll. And I'm doing a lot of mock drafts, as I'm sure a lot of people at home watching are. He's usually available at 42, although I don't think he will be by the time the draft gets here. He's gonna be one of those guys in Indianapolis that just test out of the gym. 337 pounds, and there's rumors that he has a 40-inch vertical. That's hard to even comprehend. He's going to run about a 4.8. I mean, he's going to be one of those underwear Olympic winners where he shows up, tests out of this world, and just starts rising up draft boards.
Yeah, I could see that without question, especially if he shows, the 3-cone will be important for him, because if he's 337 and shows agility and some quickness, people are going to say, I can teach him the swim move.
Yeah, it'd be hard to pass that up.
All right, another one. This from 33rdteam.com. Analysis of defensive tackle from South Carolina, Zach Pickens. Thick-bodied, athletic tackle who shows strength and has the ability to create push. And you see they rank him 66th overall, rather. 6'4", 305 pounds. What do you like about Pickens?
Well, Pickens feels like a player that's going to be right in the Browns' wheelhouse. We're talking about a former 5-star recruit, former Mr. South Carolina Football Player of the Year. We're looking, he's 6'4", 305, plays way heavier than he actually weighs. He's immovable at times. He's going to be someone that he's probably going to be available at the end of round 3, beginning of round 4, which is unfortunately is what the Browns have shown they've been willing to spend on this type of position. So I think Pickens is a guy that you need to keep an eye on. He fits the athletic profile. he is bigger than what they actually do have, so it would be an upgrade as far as that goes. But I don't see him as a player who's going to be ready to be right out the box, be a starter. So it'll be a little bit of development, but he has all the intriguing intangibles that the Browns seem to love.
And that fits with what I think they're going to do. I think they'll probably have one marquee guy. They'll spend 12, 15 million on one guy, and then they're going to have to get 3 or 4 guys in that, 7, couple at 2, some at 5, and then they're going to have to draft people because they're going to try to get them on one-year deals and just kind of turn it over.
Well, the Browns have a short-term defensive line problem and a long-term. To solve the long-term, you have to draft someone. These one-year rentals can get you through to that, but you have to develop some of these players that are already in your system. So I agree with you. I think that's going to be a multiple approach, free agency, draft, even possibly a trade.
And again, they have to get that fixed, and I still think they need to get a wide receiver that threatens vertically and horizontally.
Yeah, that might be something they look at 42 more than defensive tackle, because 42 won't solve your short term. Most likely the guy you get at 42 for defensive tackle won't be ready to start right away, whereas wide receiver, you can get some value out of that.
Casey Kinnamon, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Casey.
Hey, anytime. Thanks for having me.
Casey Kinnamon, make sure you check him out, Dog Pound Daily. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. We're talking Cavaliers have won 3 straight, back in the 4th spot in the Eastern Conference. Cavs straight ahead on Sports4CLE. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
Welcome back to Sports4CLE. We turn our attention to the Cavaliers, have won 3 straight, back in the 4th spot in the Eastern Conference. Still right in that mix, battling with the 76ers, the Bucks, and the Celtics, trying to get that top spot. 5 games out of the top spot, but still in the battle. Let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hey, love the show. Just have a couple Cavs questions, actually. The trade deadline coming with Kyrie Irving being traded and Kevin Durant possibly asking to be let out. Would you see the Cavs being a player for that? I mean, if you think about it, we don't have a lot of draft capital, but we've got players. We could let go of Windler, who hasn't played all year, really hasn't played since we've drafted him. You could send Okoro, a young, great defensive guy. You could send Kevin Love, just the contract old guy. He hasn't played the 6 games. He's out of the rotation. I mean, you've got some back-end pieces you can get rid of with some expiring contracts that can move for money, and you can still throw a couple of draft picks in if you have any that are anywhere around. But do you see them being a play for Kevin Durant if he has to be traded? Just want to hear your response. Go Cavs.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Well, here is Adrian Wojnarowski. In the aftermath of the Kyrie Irving trade, the Brooklyn Nets and Kevin Durant having ongoing conversations about the direction of the franchise. Organization thus far told inquiring teams they are not planning to trade him before Thursday's deadline, according to sources that are telling Adrian Wojnarowski that. Could that change? Sure. I don't. In order for the Nets to trade Kevin Durant, they'd want one of your big 4. They'd want either Mobley, Allen, Garland, or Mitchell, and I wouldn't do that. Durant's 34. None of the guys that I've mentioned are older than 26, so he would make them better, and he would potentially make them a contender immediately, I would guess, if you added them to the 3 of those 4, whomever they wanted. And it may not get it done because they probably want multiple first-round picks to trade him. If you're the Nets, you want 3-4 first-round picks and a couple of really good players. So I don't think the Cavs would be players in that realm. All right, let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Dave, the Cleveland Cavaliers, The last 2 days gives us as fans a good look that if this team can stay healthy, prioritizes defense as the number one go-to, their offense will continue to evolve as a whole team. With everyone contributing, the Cavs will become one of the complete elite teams in the NBA. Mitchell and Garland are figuring out how to be leaders and distribute the ball to get everyone involved. The play of Allen and Mobley, 2 young big men maturing rapidly on the basketball court, and players like Okoro, LeVert, and D. Wade giving great effort in the 3 position, and our veterans on the bench coming in and giving great minutes. The Cavs are headed in a very positive direction, and all fans better be ready for a very exciting second half of the season with the playoffs to conquer. The whole team, if they can stay healthy, the results should be very positive.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Like what I've seen the last 3 games. Let's see if they can sustain it. Before that 3-game winning streak, you know, and it started, you know, with the Donovan Mitchell thing with the Grizzlies, where the guy hit him in the groin, and then there was the fight and he got ejected. That seemed to be galvanizing, and let's see if they can continue it forward. They've certainly have been outstanding since that point. Let's see if they can kind of work through the lulls. But there are a lot of good things going on in this. Again, they view this as the beginning of a long runway, not the be-all, end-all. And there are going to be growing pains with a team as young as them, especially in the playoffs. They're going to have to learn how to win a playoff series where people are going to force you to go to the 3rd and 4th options because they know everything that you're doing by the 2nd, 3rd game. But having said that, it is promising without question. J.B. Bickerstaff talked about what he has seen from this Cavs offense in the Miami game and since the Miami game and during this winning streak.
The ball's moving. You take a look at it, and our assists have been up. That means we're sharing the ball. That obviously means you're making shots. But, again, there's a purpose that we're playing with, paying attention to the details, making sure we play together, trying to complement one another, and still working at just making the easy play, and trusting the ball. When the defense decides to take one thing away, like instead of trying to just play in a small space, just get off of it, make them pay, and trust that it'll get back to you later on.
Where'd that purpose come from?
Growth. You know what I mean? It's one of those things where, we can talk to them till they're blue in the face, but it's maturation. It's understanding how important the moment is. And, it takes time, it takes mistakes, it takes learning, and then you get it. And playing in games that matter, where your opponent raises their level, and then you understand what it's like to be able to raise your level and where you need to be consistently. And I think we're seeing the fruits of that now.
And certainly the last 3 games, the Cavs have put teams away pretty quickly. So let's see, again, consistency is what you want to see from a young team. Have they learned the lessons? In the NBA, it starts after the All-Star break. All-Star break is not this weekend, but next weekend. And that's when the veteran teams start to get real serious about it. So let's see what the Cavs do over the next couple of weeks. And do they make a deal at the trade deadline? That's Thursday. Sam Amico will be along during that show. A guy that has really stepped up, maybe gone a little under notice, has been Evan Mobley, second-year guy. Last 10 games, Mobley is averaging almost 19 points a game, 8.9 rebounds, shooting 54% from the field, and has had a double-double in 4 of his last 7. He has become more of an offensive threat, a big guy that can run the court and has been a willing passer. Mobley has stepped up and has been one of the guys that has really helped the Cavs over the last few games. They're going to need to see that kind of play from Mobley, and that is the next evolution. When Evan Mobley becomes a consistent scoring threat, look out, because then you've got Mitchell and you got Garland, and then you got the big guy inside. And good luck stopping a 6'11 guy with his quickness. All right, this from Sam Amico, who I mentioned earlier will also be along trade deadline day Thursday. Cavs are exploring the market on Karis LeVert. They have also called the Hawks to see if Bogdan Bogdanovic could be had. And that is the guy that everybody says would be a perfect fit Up till now, the Hawks have said they want an unprotected first-rounder for Bogdanovich. As Sam said on the show last week, they didn't ask for anything they want. Nobody's giving it to them. But we will continue to monitor the Cavs and the trade market. And again, trade deadline 3 o'clock Thursday. Sam Amico will be here on Sports4CLE as we break down anything that happens trade deadline day. That's going to do it for this edition of Sports4CLE. We will see you back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow at 4 on Sports4CLE.